A public records request has led to the discovery of an alarming issue within the San Francisco Unified School District. Our media partner, the San Francisco Standard, has a new article on its website on how the district has allowed employees accused of sexual misconduct to resign or retire rather than be fired. Joining us live now with more on what he's uncovered is Matthew Kupfer, senior reporter for the SF Standard. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How many employees are we talking about here?
Well, since 2017, we're talking about 19 employees that we know of who were allowed to resign or retire in lieu of a formal termination after they were accused of some kind of sexual misconduct.
What kind of sexual misconduct? Do you have any examples?
So this is a very broad term, and at the mildest end of the spectrum, it includes things that are not related to students in any way, but also it includes someone who is accused of sexually abusing students while an athletic director. It includes teachers who are accused of sexually harassing students or of touching students inappropriately. It also includes a lot of things that are sort of in between. There are some cases involving, for example, sexual harassment of another employee, I believe. So it's a broad spectrum.
Matt, what prompted you to look into this and ask for this information?
Well, there was a story discovered. There was a case, a civil case in the Superior Court discovered by my colleague Ida Mojadad that involved some students, former students of a high school in San Francisco, suing the school district over the fact that they alleged they were sexually abused by an athletic director, and that led Ida to request more documents on this subject. And we gradually turned up more and more cases, and we discovered that this issue, it's a little bit of a black hole. It's hard to find out what the allegations against these teachers were. In some cases, we have some information. In other cases, we don't. In about 7 cases, we could find almost nothing out from our public records requests, except that they received a settlement for some kind of settlement agreement allowing them to resign for some kind of sexual misconduct. And what that means is if we can't get it, there's no way the public can find that out either.
Well, were you able to find out if any of these 19 cases resulted in prosecutions?
By and large, it looks like they did not.
Okay.
And that we're still looking into that. In some cases, police were definitely involved, but it did not necessarily lead to charges. I think that's an interesting question of why that happens. It's likely because there isn't enough evidence for prosecution. And one thing we should say is the standard for law enforcement to charge someone and to prosecute someone is much higher than the standard for a school district to simply determine they committed misconduct and to fire them. But these people were not fired. They were allowed to resign through a settlement agreement, and those agreements say that they are non-precedental, meaning they do not constitute an admission of wrongdoing. It's simply a brokered settlement to a disagreement between 2 parties.
I mean, does the district's handbook, if you will, spell out exactly what is a fireable offense when it comes to sexual misconduct? And did these cases rise to that?
We looked at the handbook, we looked at the contract, I should say, the union labor contract for teachers, and while it does describe what things are fireable offenses, I would not say, at least from what I could see, that it was extremely detailed. So I think there's a lot of open questions there.
Yeah, that could be one of the issues, right? But who benefits and who is harmed, I guess, when these employees are allowed to simply resign or retire as opposed to being fired?
Well, let's start with who benefits, because that's actually a very interesting question. This type of a settlement is, at least on the superficially, it's sort of beneficial for everyone. For the district, they managed to get the teacher away or the employee away from students as soon as possible. That makes students who may have been harmed by this employee feel safer on campus. It also is often amenable to the parents. It also means that the district doesn't have to deal with bad publicity from this incident because the incident usually doesn't go public. It's quietly solved. And also teachers, they have quite a bit of due process allowance in their union contracts. They're entitled to a hearing during which people need to testify, including potentially the students they have wronged. And the district says that this settlement prevents the students from being re-traumatized. There's also a broad perception that it costs a lot of money to fire a teacher.